Well, hello, everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets&Quants, and I'm here with Nathan Allen, the editor of our massive project to rank the best MBA programs for entrepreneurship. We're going to give you a countdown of the top 10 schools. Nathan will do that in a minute. But before I do that, I want to welcome you to our conference today. It's a big backstage event. We're starting off with a rankings announcement. Then we'll go to a fireside chat that I've done with the dean of a school, along with their academic director for entrepreneurship. We'll follow that up with a discussion that I'll have about the worth of an MBA for an entrepreneur. Then we'll have a first admissions panel with 4 great schools with terrific entrepreneurship programs: Rice University, IE Business School in Spain, Babson and WashU Olin, last year's winner. We'll have admission chats that will follow the panel so that you can talk directly to each of these schools and find out a lot more information about their programs and ask any question you might want to ask. We have an MBA alumni panel. We'll have Michigan Ross, UC San Diego, IESC, ESA school in Barcelona, beautiful Barcelona, and Babson, and a couple of admission chats after that. And finally, we'll do a startup roundtable. We'll hear from MBAs about how the degree helped them launch a startup. So let me introduce Nathan Allen, and he will give us the big news.
Thanks, John. Yeah, this is our second year of doing this ranking with Inc. magazine. We've expanded it from 27 schools last year to 50 this year. So almost 24 new schools. That means the competition's a lot worse, a lot tougher. There'll be some bumping around in this ranking. So we'll just go ahead and get into it, and then we can talk a little bit about it.
Cool.
So at number 10, we have a school that participated last year, but went up quite a few spots to the number 10 spot, Northwestern University's Kellogg School of Management in Chicago.
Wow.
Then we have at number 9, MIT's Sloan School of Management, you know, the Boston school. Boston's got a huge entrepreneurship scene. So they're up there at number 9. IE Business School, number 8, one of the global schools in this year's ranking. And then our other global school in the top 10 came in at number 7, the SADE Business School. And then number 6, we have Cornell University's Tech MBA program,
In New York City.
which their first year participating, and they debuted at number 6, so really strong showing. Another school that fell out of the top 10 last year that we were both kind of surprised about, redeemed itself a little bit, went up to number 5, that's Harvard Business School. So a good showing for them this year. They're back up where many people probably think they should be with their robust entrepreneurship department.
I've heard about it.
Yeah, it's quite the thing. And then we've got Stanford's Graduate School of Business at number 3, you know, based in the middle of Silicon Valley in Palo Alto. And then we've got the University of Michigan's Ross School of Business.
Wow.
And then Babson College. And then this year's number 1 spot was the same as last year's number 1 spot, Washington University in St. Louis's Olin Business School.
Wow.
There it is.
In the second year in a row, they've captured the top spot. What makes them so good?
Right. So this year, you know, getting into the details of the actual raw score, their raw score was a lot closer this year. So they only actually won by 3 points, and last year they won by about 17 points out of 100 available. So it was a lot closer this year. And, you know, it's interesting because the way our methodology is set up is we have 10 different categories. WashU only outright won 1 of them. It was one of the heavier ranked categories. We have 2 that are given 20 points apiece for a total of 100 for all 10 categories. So the 2 that are 20 are very heavily weighted compared to the other 8 that make up the remaining 60. But WashU plays first, and the average startups launched within 3 months of graduation over the past 3 years. So what we do is we take the class of 2017, 2018, and 2019 employment reports, and then we average those 3 numbers together in terms of how many were starting businesses within 3 months of graduation. And WashU had the highest percentage at 19.67%, Michigan's Ross School of Business was second with 18.67, and then Stanford's was third with 15.79%. And one more thing that I want to hit on before we go to the next that's important to this ranking, and it's that we consider percentages and ratios instead of raw numbers. So WashU is a very small program. They do well in this ranking because of their small numbers and their high percentages and high ratios. And this is an example of one of it. You don't have the same number of WashU or Stanford MBAs starting startups immediately after graduation as you would a Harvard Business School, but the percentage is higher because there's less of them to go around.
Yeah, in this way, large schools don't have an overt advantage over the smaller schools, although obviously they have other advantages and the other important metrics in the ranking.
Right. So then the other portion that's ranked 20 that also gets the 20 points is the percentage of elective courses that are dedicated specifically to entrepreneurship and innovation. So these courses have to have 100% of their curriculum focused on entrepreneurship and innovation. So they could be just the intro to entrepreneurship courses or the social enterprise courses, or they could even be the fintech courses because that's a big focus on innovation and innovating in industry. So the school that had the highest percentage and earned the full 20 points is CEIBS, the China and Europe International Business School in Shanghai. 46.81% of their courses last academic year, 2019-2020, were focused on entrepreneurship. And then you've got IE Business School with 34%, so a big gap there. So CEIBS earned a lot of points in there. And then Stanford had 33.57%, and Chicago's Booth School had 33.33%, and then Northwestern had 33%. So you've got 5 schools from all around the world that have at least a third of their elective courses dedicated directly to entrepreneurship and innovation. That says a lot because that's just one, subject area of many in business school.
Exactly. And what are some of the other metrics?
Yeah, so then we've got things, I'll just kind of go through the list right now. We look at students graduating that are going directly into venture capital and private equity roles. And so this is our attempt to, and no methodology is perfect, but this has been part of our attempt to go beyond just looking at startups. So we're looking at schools that are training students that are going into venture capital and looking at that side of entrepreneurship where they're looking for hot new startups to invest in. So there we have that. That was worth 5 points. We also look at the core courses that are dedicated to entrepreneurship and innovation. So this one's different. We just require 50% of the curriculum dedicated to entrepreneurship and innovation. And not many schools have, about half the schools have at least one core course dedicated to that, but many do not. And some of the other things we look at the electives, we look at the clubs, so the percentage of student-run clubs on campus that are focused on entrepreneurship. We look at the amount of students that are in those clubs. We look at accelerator space available, but again, we do that in a ratio to students, MBA students in the program. We look at the ratio of entrepreneurs and residents to the MBA programs. Then we also look at total startup award money. And then the last thing that we look at that I want to mention is that we look at the percentage of faculty members that teach at least one entrepreneurship course. So we're looking at faculty. We're trying to gather just the overall entrepreneurial ecosystem on a campus.
So if I step back from that, here's what I draw. We're trying to measure the school's commitment to entrepreneurship based on the resources it pours into it. That includes both curricula and faculty. We're trying to measure the engagement of the students in those efforts by looking at the percentage of people who are involved in entrepreneurship clubs. And we're trying to measure the outcomes on some level, because to the extent that people do use a business school education as an incubator to start a business, we're tracking that as well. What we're not tracking here, which I think will be to everyone's delight, there are no GMATs, there are no GREs, there are no accepted rates.
Yes.
There are no salaries, there are no placement rates. This is pure entrepreneurial-minded education and an institution's commitment to it. And so you're getting the real thing with this ranking, which is why I really like the methodology. And it is true. There's no perfect methodology. But the other thing I really like about what we do is we parse the data and we make it available to everyone. All the data is transparent. You can pick the things that matter to you and discount the things that don't.
Yeah, one of the things that I think makes this ranking, obviously no methodology is perfect, but I think one of the big differences between a good ranking and a bad ranking is the data available. And we make all of that data available. Somebody could go in and rerun all of the calculations that we did and reproduce this ranking for themselves. But we do cover a bunch of different things. And maybe you don't want to start a company immediately after graduation, but you want to go to a school where there's going to be a lot of students interested in entrepreneurship. So you could look at the percentage of students in the entrepreneurship club. Northwestern's Kellogg had 78% of their students last year, MBA students last year, in this entrepreneurship club. So that's a huge ecosystem where there's a lot of people who are interested in entrepreneurship and doing so many different things besides launching a business.
And the other cool thing is by looking at the number of courses where entrepreneurship and innovation is at the center of the courses in the elective and the core curriculum, what you're basically doing is saying, hey, whatever you want to do, the more important takeaway is, will you graduate from this school with an entrepreneurial mindset, with the ability to do things on the cheap, to do things on your own, even in the corporate environment. And that's as much or as important a part of a school's approach to entrepreneurship than the number of people who simply launch a company.
Right. Yep, totally. And, I think I just want to reiterate that this ranking goes well beyond the actual ranking, and the reason why we publish all the data and write the feature on the most disruptive startups and feature a bunch of different startups and write a really in-depth feature also with the rankings is that, we believe that the readers should look at all sorts of this data and look at it from all sorts of different directions and ways and really evaluate, these schools on the data that's presented that's nowhere else on the internet, all in one spot like this.
Now, how do we know the data is reliable, Nathan?
So we know the data is reliable because we survey the schools, first of all. So this year, 27 schools actually returned a survey. So then we've got the other 23 schools that we had to go gather the data on our own. And we make this clear in the actual article which schools those are. So we go out and we gather the data on our own, and then we return it to the schools and give them a couple of weeks to corroborate it. So those are our ways of going about ensuring that the data is correct.
And I might add that it takes Nathan hundreds of hours to produce this massive project.
Schools don't like rankings sometimes, and so you have to do a little grunt work on your own to get them to participate. This is one of those cases.
I learned that from the very beginning, back in 1988, when I launched the first MBA ranking for Business Week. And I know it can be a grind, but Nathan is spending hundreds of hours on this project. He's digging through data that isn't readily available to a lot of people. So a lot of the data you're going to see here is proprietary. You won't see it anywhere else. And we're saving you the time to go and dig through, web pages galore to figure out how one school compares to another. Now, it may seem surprising to many people that a school like Stanford isn't first. And when you think about that, what's your reply? Why wouldn't Stanford be first, since it's right in the heart of Silicon Valley? It's really at the center of the most dynamic entrepreneurial economy in the world.
Yeah, Stanford obviously does a lot of things really well. They have one of the highest percentages of people launching businesses immediately after graduation. They're sending more people into venture capital than any other school, and it's not really close. And that makes total sense because they're right next to Sand Hill Road.
Right.
The connections are there, and the more alumni they put in there, the easier it is to continue to develop that pipeline. But, this just kind of highlights again the other aspects of the ranking. Stanford didn't have any core courses that were dedicated specifically to entrepreneurship, and other schools did. And their electives are high there, and I'm kind of just going through right now. But basically, what it comes down to is that there are just so many. There's 10 methodological categories in here, and so the winner WashU only placed first in one. And so there's a lot of different aspects to this ranking. And it's really not to discount any school finishing, third or fourth versus 47th or 48th. This year we have 50 total. It's really just differences of schools. And so if you're looking to start a company, go into VC, then Stanford's a great choice. But if you're looking for maybe a larger percentage of MBAs who are interested in entrepreneurship, or coursework, or faculty that are dedicated to it, or a lot of SARP award money, then there might be some other schools that are better fits.
True. And for a school to rank high, you have to do well across the board pretty much. So it's not necessary to, to be on the top of each one of these metrics, but it is necessary to score very well in the top tier across all 10 metrics to really rank probably in the top 10, I would think.
Yep, that's correct.
The other thing, what I love about Olin being first, to be honest, is that you wouldn't expect it ordinarily. Yes, they were first last year in our debut ranking, but hey, they're in the Midwest, and we don't immediately associate entrepreneurship in the Midwest because there's so much action on the coast. But in truth, Washington University has been instrumental in creating in the St. Louis metro area in ways that, frankly, the more popular schools like a Stanford and Harvard have not.
Well, yeah, it's the big fish in the small pond cliche. You go to a Stanford and you're right in Silicon Valley, but everyone wants to be in Silicon Valley. You go to WashU and you're kind of the queen and king of the town. I spent some time there last year reporting for the original ranking, and it's really evident that if you have a WashU MBA, you're going to be highly sought after in the St. Louis area, in the St. Louis ecosystem. And they've poured a ton of resources into developing. They've got what's called the T-Rex accelerator space. They've got the Cortex space. It's literally tens of thousands of square feet that have been dedicated to entrepreneurship in St. Louis. So you're seeing these places pop up elsewhere too. Nashville's kind of seeing it now. Atlanta's got some stuff going on, and there's these little outcroppings of different entrepreneurial ecosystems that are really great. And the people at WashU will tell you that what it takes is some capital, some investment from the community, a strong MBA program, as well as a strong university. So you have to have the strong research university. They've got a great medical center there. And with those kind of ingredients, you can really shake things up and have a cool entrepreneurial ecosystem.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I can't wait to look at the entire list. You can see it on poetsandquants.com. And meantime, we're gearing up for this big day event. And immediately after our conversation, we have our fireside chat with the dean and academic director of an entrepreneurship program. You will not want to miss that or any of the other events throughout the day, whether it's our alumni panel or admissions panel, the chats, the conversations. Looking forward to it all. Nathan, thank you.
Thanks, John.
All right, this is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Stay with us throughout the day. We're really going to have a great time.